Hey LCC family, Pastor Mike here. I'm the pastor of Lockport Christian Church. We are a church of disciples who are passionate about making disciples. Today is Wednesday in the Word, and I believe that we are called to live in a day and age where we work with our weapon in one hand and our tools in the other. Let's unpack that today. All right, so it's Wednesday in the Word. We are in Nehemiah chapter 4. Last week we talked about how to deal with opposition. This week is kind of an extension of last week, and we're going to talk about what to do when the opposition ratchets itself up, when the opposition takes it to a whole new level. And last week you kind of left off where Nehemiah finished the wall. We're going to pick up there today. It says, "But when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead and the gaps were being closed, they were very angry." So Nehemiah set out to build the wall of Jerusalem, to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. He comes against opposition. Last week we talked about what to do with that opposition. But when the opposition, these guys, the Ammonites, the people, when they heard that Nehemiah was actually being successful, that he was making headway, that he was taking new ground, that he was rebuilding these walls, closing the gaps, they got very angry. And here's what they did. This is verse 8. "They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble. But we prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat." We're going to skip down to verse 13 to see how Nehemiah responded to this. It says, "Therefore I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows." So the first thing Nehemiah did was when his opposition ratcheted it up, when they took it up a level, he looked at the wall. He looked at the entirety of the wall, and he positioned people in strategic places where he felt the wall was weakest. When you have opposition and it kicks it up a level, what you need to do is you need to make an assessment of your life. Make an assessment of your weak points. Maybe some of you emotionally, there's some weak areas where things seem to really get you down, where depression can kind of creep in. Maybe for some of you, there's some wounds. Maybe for some of you, there's some bad habits that are weak in your life. Maybe for some of you, it's the way that you react to things. I don't know, but make an assessment. Find out what's weak and make special or stronger defenses in those areas. That's where people can really help you out. So the first thing he did was he assessed the weak points and he put extra defense there. God's going to show you how to do that if you ask him. Look at it, look at your life, find the weak points and ask God for wisdom on how to make it stronger. Then in verse 14, it says, "After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, 'Do not be afraid. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, sons and daughters, your wives, and your homes.'" The second thing he did was he reminded himself and the people about how great he was, and he encouraged them to fight because he knew God was fighting on his behalf. He looked, he assessed, he strengthened, and then he reminded us and them how great God is. Verse 15 says, "When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to our own work. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor." That's where that people come into life. You got to have people who have your back, that while you're working, while you're struggling, while you're putting in the time to make your defenses stronger, you got to have people to watch your back. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judah who were rebuilding the wall. And this is what I want to key in today. It says, "Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. And each of the builders wore his sword at his side, and he worked. As he worked, the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me." I'm going to read that again. "But the people who who were building the wall, those who carried materials, did their work with one hand, held a weapon in the other, and each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked. I believe that we are called in this season, especially, to be reminded of these workers that Nehemiah had. In one hand was the weapon, in the other hand was their materials to work with, and each of them had a sword at his side. Man, that's such a powerful example of the way that we're supposed to live. Remember the Bible in the New Testament. The Bible talks about putting on your armor. Every day we're supposed to put on our armor. Every day we are supposed to be aware that we are in the middle of a fight. Whether you realize it or not, you're a soldier of God. And every day we have to put on our armor. Every day we have to work with our materials and our tools in one hand and our weapon in the other, and our sword at our side, ready to fight opposition. Let me tell you, the enemy doesn't care if you're working, doesn't care if you're on vacation, doesn't care if you have a day off or a busy day, doesn't care if you're ready for it or not. He's going to attack whenever it's best. And so God is calling us to have a weapon in one hand and our work in the other. A weapon in one hand and our work in the other. Be cognizant that an attack, that opposition can come at any time, especially when it comes from the inside. So that's Wednesday in the Word. That's what happens when the opposition takes it up a whole new level. Number one, defend your weak points. Number two, remind yourself of how great God is. And number three, put on your armor, work with one hand, defend yourself with the other, and be ready for attacks at any time. That's the day and age we live in, folks. We are always having to make sure that we are ready to defend opposition no matter where it comes from. That is Wednesday in the Word. Have a great rest of your week. Pastor Mike here. Hey, be praying for my family. We're really going through it. I'm praying for you guys, and we are all in this together. Bye.